back, Day Camp friends, to episode 15 of the Day Camp Pod. I'm Andy Pritikin, the director of Liberty Lake in the Philadelphia suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
And I'm Ehren Gluckstein from Camp Robin Hood in just outside of Toronto, Canada.
The south side. Oh, the rough and tumble side. We are camp professionals joining forces to provide a forum for the day camp pros like you to share ideas and best practices across North America and beyond. And for today's episode, we are going to be joined by the one and only Professor Dave Malter, focusing on keeping staff on board from the interviews of the first day of camp, keeping them engaged through staff orientation. This is a staff training podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But first off, the Day Camp Pod is brought to you by CRS Commercial Recreation Specialists, the fine purveyors of the best waterfront, and splash pad products in the world. Check out their website, crsforrec.com. They are serious about fun. And this Go Camp Pro podcast is also sponsored by the American Camp Association in New York and New Jersey, dedicated to preserving, promoting, all that, enhancing the quality of the day camp experience, summer camp experience. The professional development includes the Tri-State Camp Conference, as well as the LEAD Conference coming up soon. And all that and more can be found at aca-nynj.org. All right. So, Dave Malter, how you doing?
Andy Pritikin, Ehren, Sam, nice to see everybody, hear everybody. How you doing?
I have to say, Dave, we just listened to your fine baritone on the Tri-State episode, the crazy interview episode that we did.
We were talking about that when you kicked me off the couch because I had to go to the bathroom and you couldn't wait.
Yeah, we supplanted you.
That's right.
We did. But I have to say, Dave, you made the most of your 10 minutes, and you made it. It's a worthy return.
That was fun. I'll be honest, it was a lot of fun. It was very different. It was a little pressure filled, which I think is good to get your blood flowing, get you going. So it was really a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
And you left us wanting more, because that's why you're here.
Exactly, Ehren. Exactly. So Dave, it's been a whirlwind this year. We started out the year in Boulder, Colorado, right?
That's right.
I hung out with you and Pam there, and you've just been whizzing through all these conferences and visiting places all over the country. I mean, you must be like a serious frequent flyer guy now, huh?
I've got some serious miles. I actually purposely, you'll appreciate this, took the month of April to kind of chill out a little bit, except my email and phone kept ringing. So now April's starting to get busy again. So as hard as I tried, but it's been great. It's been really a lot of fun, seeing a lot of interesting places, visiting camps, working with a lot of different leadership teams, doing some different projects, staff training focused really for the most part.
Right. So we heard Dave's backstory on that episode 12 or whatever it was, 11, about Tri-State. So we're just going to jump right into it with staff training. So I think that we've been hearing now, everybody's changing, right? Kids have changed and staff has changed, and there's all these different ways to give information forth. Dr. G is she's creating things that are, video based and MP3 based and handouts and all that kind of thing. And I was just having a staff training meeting with my team prior to this podcast, and everybody's sort of perplexed, because a lot of the people that are creating the staff training are older than the people that are getting the staff training. Right. So, I think that you and frankly, Ehren, my man, you guys are like in the middle in a way. You can sort of see both ends still. Right. So, when you're jumping into this kind of thing with a camp, I mean, what kind of recommendations do you have as far as just the blend? Let's just talk about the blend first.
So I actually want to I don't think it's as hard as people think it is, to be honest. And I think that part of the problem is that every generation, the generation before them has said, oh, these kids, right? They don't do it the way that I used to do it. And it's always kind of been that way. And I think that if we just take a step back and say, okay, they learn differently, they think differently, they have different ideas. What are they? Let's ask them and start from there. The first question that I ask any camp that I work with who needs help with staff training, the first question I ask is, have you asked your staff how they like to learn? And I get stone cold silence every time. Nobody has ever asked their staff, what do you need? Right? Because we're all these bunch of great camp people who've been in camp for decades, who know camp, who get it, have run successful camps, keep growing, great programs. So we all think we know what we're doing and we're good in front of a room and we get it, but maybe we don't. And maybe we need to ask a little bit more. So the first thing I say is ask people how they like to learn and then start from there, instead of just giving them and kind of throwing it out there and hoping it's going to work. So that's my first kind of big question.
All right, well, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So, but if you ask a high school student, a college student, that kind of question, do they really know the answer?
Yeah, they do.
Or do they
I think we
they
don't
know?
give them enough credit. I honestly don't. You know, I was actually doing a training Monday night and I did this whole piece about setting goals. And it was with a bunch of supervisors, like 30 leadership team members at a camp in New Jersey. And part of this exercise is to asking your staff to write down what their goals are and really like their long-term goal, short-term, camp, personal. And somebody asked, do they even know? And I said, yeah, but nobody ever asked them. Nobody ever asked them any questions, right? We throw all this information at them. So I don't think you can say, how do you like to learn? And you'll get a good answer. But I think if you give them some options, right? How do you like to get your information? What works best for you? When you're sitting in a classroom, does it work best for you when your teacher just talks? Or does it work best for you when you can watch a video and then talk about it? Does it work best for you if you sit in a circle and talk to other people? Does it work best if you do independent silent work, right? What works best for you and what do you like best? You'll get answers.
All right. So,
I did ask my staff this year, Andy, and they told me they wanted to do, they wish they could have lived through a day at camp, not just be lectured to or whatever. They wanted to do a day. So this year, that's what we're trying to do, is a full day of them being a camper and the veteran staff being the counselors.
yeah, experiential learning. That's true.
So,
Dave, I'm with you 100% on the goals. All right. I mean, any camp that is not asking the staff for their goals is crazy because that's to me like low hanging fruit.
And I want to add something to that, Andy.
Yeah.
So it's not the exercise that I grew up doing, which was you write down your 3 goals for the summer, somebody puts it in an envelope, and then they either mail it to you if you're in college or give it to you at the end of the summer. So I've taken that to a
Time
different
machine.
level because that just seems to make no sense. But go
Time
ahead.
capsule, not the time capsule.
Not the time capsule.
Yeah, I got you. But just going back to the question again of how do you like to learn, right?
Mhm.
I mean, from what I see from college kids and high school kids, they like watching short YouTube-y kind of videos. Like
Great.
that's what it seems like to me. But then, you know, if I had to, and you know, I know you're part of Expert Online Training, so we could give them a little, you know,
Right.
shout out. All right. But you can't, I think I'd lose my mind if my staff training was based on that. I mean, but yet I know people are taking online courses left and right. Right.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be all or nothing either, right? You've got to give them a little something, even if you're only giving them 10% as the things that they love, right? Because everybody's going to have different things because you have different ages and different backgrounds and people are going to learn differently. But even if they see that you've asked the question, which is probably the most important part, they want people to ask them questions. They want to feel like people care about them. And if you say, okay, you want that? Great. Here's some, but I'm also going to ask you to look at things from this perspective as well. So if you can just hang in there and listen to this lecture or watch this role play or whatever it is that you're doing at training, if you can just hang in there and do that, I promise you that I'm listening to you and I will give you some short videos to watch as well, or whatever it is that they like.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to compromise a little bit and say,
yeah.
It's not all about me. It's not all about them.
It's the blend, like we're
It's a
saying.
blend.
So-
as we started.
So Dave, you now, you know, you spent most of your life in day camps,
Yeah.
and now you spend your summers at a resident camp.
Yeah. I spent the last 5 summers at resident camp.
At a great one. Shout out to Canadensis.
Yeah. Canadensis, my beautiful, amazing wife, Pam. Shout out.
Never misses an opportunity to
That's
butter
right.
that bread, I have to say. So, our resident camp friends have so much time, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
how many days of orientation training do you do at Canadensis?
There's probably like 15. I don't know.
No, seriously.
Half the year.
7? No, I mean,
7.
no. I'm
About
talking about
7.
the regular staff, not the leadership team. The regular.
Right. About 7. There actually might be a little bit more this year because the dates are a little bit different. But yeah,
Okay.
about 7.
All right. So that, you know, and I know
Great.
Baskin does 10 and
Right.
whatever, right? But a day camp, right?
Mhm.
We do not have them hostage in the middle of the mountains, right? These people, they have their high school graduations they got to go to. They got
Mhm.
graduation parties. They got finals. They got this. They got that. They're getting pulled in every direction. They have homework, right? I've had kids come up to me, I can't come because I have to write a paper for a thing
Right.
that's due tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
And then our middle management people, right, who are mostly teachers and such, they have obligations with their school. So what I'm saying is that we don't even have that many hours, right, combined. You know, I mean, my camp, we do 3 hours here, 3 hours here,
Right. Then
maybe
you
a
have a
6
couple
hour
full
here,
days.
right?
Right.
So now let's take all the things that we have to talk about,
Mhm.
right? So like Sam said, for her new staff, I'm guessing that's going to be like the run through a day camp kind of thing, which we do a similar kind of thing. And that takes a chunk of time, no doubt about it. But within that, you have to squeeze in other things too, because you got to get all these mandatory things. You got to talk about child abuse. You got to talk about health
Mhm.
stuff, right? You got to
Yeah.
talk about some basics like how the schedule works and all that kind of thing. Now, all of a sudden, we have like, oh my gosh, we have 2.5 hours left of stuff that we can talk
Yeah.
about,
Right.
right? And how do we do it? Oh, wait a second, they want 10% video and 20% this.
I think that
Conundrum.
I think we need to be really intentional about what we're including. So, really simple example. Stop wasting time showing people where the bathrooms are and where the dining hall is and
Scheduling.
things like that. Because if they're high school or college students and they have to go to the bathroom or eat, they're going to figure it out. We don't need to waste 2 hours of our precious time doing sessions about where the bathrooms are, where things are at camp, how the dining hall works necessarily. Like if you say, you sit at the table, you go get food for your kids, watch somebody who's been here before. I mean, it's enough, right? Or if we're doing a day at camp and we demonstrate how we do it when we have lunch that day, right? At one of our longer trainings. I think people are just not being intentional enough with the time that they have and what's really important.
All right, so let's talk about that in
Yeah.
specific. So here we are, this day camp, right? We have this staff, okay? And by the way, we talked with Dr. G and Kim Acott on the last podcast about how to keep people from bailing, which is turning into this issue, right?
Right.
So let's say 15% of all the people you hire aren't even making it to the first day of camp, God forbid, right? Which is what a lot of camps are saying, which is ludicrous, but it's what's happening. So is it fair to say that the most important part of staff training, orientation, whatever you want to call it, is making people feel comfortable and part of the community so that they actually want to be there and stay on
Totally.
and learn all these things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. And I think it's, we have to understand like how to take care of kids, right? That's important. But I think giving them an opportunity to build community and build connections is the most important thing. So it's a lot of the work that I've been doing lately, Andy, is about this idea of connections, right? So we as human beings, we are wired to be connected to other human beings. And what social media and the internet and all of these things, these distractions, for 10 months out of the year, there is no real connection, right? There's going from activity to activity. There's social pressures online. There's social media. So our job as camp professionals is to help them build those connections again with campers, which is the most important part of it, right? We want campers to have these connections with what we call role models. And I think that if we do more of that at staff training, other things fall into place, right? Yes, we need to talk about child abuse. It's something that I go around the country talking about, right? For Skyer, right? I talk about, it's important. It's an extremely important topic. And we need to talk about behavior management and some risk management pieces. But ultimately, we want them to feel like they're part of a community, what their impact is going to be, what it means to take care of kids. And that's really it. So I agree with you that it's not so much about all this technical stuff. It's more about why are they there and what's their impact and how it's going to impact them. I also think that we need to ask them more questions instead of just feeding them information. And they should have the opportunity to ask us more questions, which I don't think we necessarily allow.
There's
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry, there's a really good online course for mandatory reporting or child abuse. And so that they can do online before they get to you and just give you the certificate, and then you give them an hour on their timesheet. So that's one piece you can pull out ahead of time, which is much more digestible in that form than it is the scary person getting them looking at every little boo-boo to see if it's.
Well, I try not to be
outdoors.
too scary when I do it. More serious than scary, Sam.
That's
I
good.
promise.
I'm sure we have similar legal obligations in Canada to what you guys have to do, but there's certain videos that we actually have to show and watch them complete, and we ask them questions, whatever. But yeah, the idea of just having whatever we can offload and make responsibilities at home and have them sign off on that, then we've tried to do that with those formal legal obligation related things. Obviously, the child abuse one is an important one that we do in person. We have to talk about it face to face and have them ask questions. We bring in a lawyer for that and all that stuff. But for some of these other like orientation type things that are necessary and important, something that we tried last year, it was the idea of just turning that and some of these other things into games and activities that they could do together. So like we did a map orientation activity, where groups were put, people were paired in groups, and there was a competition with prizes, and they had to run around like crazy and yell and do all these fun camp-like tasks in order to figure out where all the activities were and the timing of the schedule and all that stuff. So we tried to sort of meld the idea of building connections, having fun with some of those more tedious, time-consuming things.
Yeah, so good points here, right? Of what can you allocate to not have to do with the face-to-face time, since your face-to-face time is so scarce at a day camp, right? So going back to sleepaway camp, where they have 7 days for photosynthesis to take place, and all of a sudden everybody's like living together, and it just gradually happens, right, over time.
Right.
You just do that, right? And we have to sort of like, we're like orange juice concentrate. I always tell people at a day camp, right? We take out all the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here we are with our minimal time. How do we in a day camp fast food setting where they're in and out, and we don't have them for 7 days living in bunks? What are some tips, Dave, of how day camps can start thinking about how to foster that kind of sense of building community and connections, which I agree is the utmost importance of what staff training should be?
Well, I think it should look like camp, right? I think that anything that you do should look and feel and sound like camp. So it shouldn't be people sitting in a lecture hall, right, with somebody in the front of the room talking to them. It should be in small groups. It should be with the people that you're going to be working with, the people that you're going to have to trust. It should be having good conversations, facilitating good conversations. So there's, if I'm talking about risk management, right, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. I don't have to get up in front of the room and show a slide of, all these awful things that could happen at camp, right? I can give them with a small group of, the, whatever you call your youngest boys counselors, right, sitting in a circle with their supervisor, and give them some questions to really facilitate the conversation, right? What happens when you make bad decisions? Let's talk about it, right? And let them really think about it and talk about it and hear it from other people. So things like that you can do in 10 minutes, right? And then you move on to the next piece. And I think it needs to be fun. I think it needs to be high energy. You got to be playing music. You've got to let them get up and dance once in a while. It's got to feel like camp. It's gotta be what camp is, because camp is not, listening to somebody go on for 2 hours or 6 hours or however much time you're there for. That's not what it's going to look or feel like. And the more we can make it look or feel like camp, the more ready they'll be. So when camp starts on day one, whatever day you're starting, Monday morning, the buses roll in. They're like, oh, well, this isn't what we've been doing for the past, 14 hours of training, right? This isn't what it looked like, right? It looked totally different.
Great points.
Absolutely.
Great points. Yeah, it really has to feel like camp, and that's got to be really intentional on the facilitators and the directors and the people that are programming this beforehand to really think this through. That is an awesome point.
Sorry, I just sorry.
No sweat, Dave.
Yeah,
So,
you almost want, when the kid 16-year-old gets dropped off by their parents for first day of staff training, you want the parents to be like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, so what I always tell, I talk about it a lot with sleepaway camps, but it applies to day camps also. So, at sleepaway camp, to go back to Andy really not liking the fact that I work at Sleepaway Camp now.
No, I don't. I resent it
but
because I wish that I had the time with my
the amount of time
you have.
But what I say is that, you know, you have all this pre-camp staff there who've been there for like a couple of weeks already, let's say, right, who are helping get camp ready. And then you have all this other staff that are coming for the first day of staff training, which let's say it's Saturday. Everybody should leave camp, right? All those people that have been there for pre-camp should leave. And you should tell everybody who's coming to camp, just like visiting day, they should come at a specific time. So we won't open the gates until 10 a.m. on Saturday when you can come in. And instead of the first thing being that you should go do your paperwork, get your lice check, get your t-shirts or whatever it is, you should have a freaking party when everybody comes through those gates. There should be music blasting through whatever PA or speaker system you have. There should be snow cones and popcorn and all sorts of fun stuff. There should be games. That should be the first hour of when people come into your camp, whether you're day camp, sleepaway camp, I don't care what it is. So if it's that first orientation, take half an hour, just have a party, make it fun. The paperwork will get done. Like, we'll get it done. Do it at a mealtime, right? Do it before they leave for the night, whatever it is. But let's make it a little more fun and less serious. You know, I know there's serious implications to camp, but it comes from the fun and what we're talking about with connections and things like that. That's where it all really comes from.
Even though I'm a day camp, we feed them a lot. So
Yeah,
when they
food.
get there, the first morning we have an in-kind donation with Dunkin' Donuts. So they come in and they've got breakfast. The concession stand is open for lunch, so they don't leave the property. And then the second day we campfire cook, so they can learn how to do it with their kids, but they're also getting fed again and don't have to leave. We don't lose our audience because we've only got them from 9 to 3. So they like to eat.
Yeah, totally.
Gotcha. So what about icebreakers and team building kind of things, right? Because, you know, look, there's introverts, there's extroverts, there's people that like team building and icebreakers, and there's people that don't, and all those kind of things. I mean, you mentioned a lot of stuff. I appreciate, Dave, that you mentioned a lot of great ideas, and you didn't even mention those, which I think that's everybody's go-to. Oh, well, we'll start off with some icebreakers and some things, and then it'll be fine, and everybody will feel like a community, and we can move forward, right?
Well, I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble now, and hopefully I don't lose you any subscribers, because I know you have a lot. Is it 17 countries now, Ehren? 17, 18?
At least 17 countries.
We haven't even heard of some of the countries.
So here we go.
We're in Andorra. You ever heard of Andorra? It's a little country on the border of Spain and France.
I thought that was from a movie.
Wow. Real.
Oh, that's Endor. Sorry. So that was for Justin Pritikin, if you're listening. Okay. So
Scott Rothschild.
Rothschild. Here we go. Stop with the freaking icebreakers and team builders. Just stop. Okay.
I don't think you lost any subscribers.
Okay.
That's sort of what I was feeding you that.
I facilitated those for a long time as an introvert. So believe it or not, I am a huge introvert. Doing the things that I do in front of audiences at different conferences, it's really hard for me. It's a skill that I've developed, and I take pride in the fact that I'm able to do it, and it's a challenge for me. But I used to facilitate all these team builders and icebreakers. There are at least 50% of the people that come to your camp who you make them do these icebreakers, and they are completely turned off from the second they get there. 100%. And you can't get them back. They feel uncomfortable. They feel left out. And you have to have some balance. So actually a session that I did at Tri-State was about introverts and extroverts and valuing both equally. But first, like I started with earlier about, have you asked your staff how they learn? Well, if you ask your staff if they're introverts or extroverts, there's a really easy quiz that you can give. It's 20 questions, true, false. It takes about 3 minutes, right? And it gives you an idea, and you give that to your supervisors, and they know what their staff are like. You can pair people up. And then you can design, I don't know if this is gonna be a video, but I'm air quoting, you can then do team builders that are equal for everybody. So if there are people who are extroverts and like that kind of stuff, design something for them, but also design something for those introverts who want to meet people in a more natural way that doesn't require them to put themselves in a situation they're uncomfortable with. Again, they're high school and college students. If we take their phones away, we give them name tags, and we put them in the room together for long enough, they're going to learn each other's names. They're going to find each other. They're going to find where they belong. They're going to find like-minded people. They're going to make friends. It's part of camp. It's part of what we do. And it happens very quickly. Once you put them in real life, face-to-face situations, they're really good at it because, again, we're wired for it. It's what we want to find people that we like.
So what you're saying is it happens organically.
It does.
That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. I think that's groundbreaking, Professor Dave. I think that a lot of people,
I really like to live on the edge.
a lot of people understand this, but I don't think a lot of people do anything about it.
Because it's scary.
They keep running it back.
Right. It's scary to say, like, well, what happens if they don't get to know each other or they don't bond? But they're going to bond. Listen, if they don't bond, if they don't buy in, then they shouldn't be there. And you're going to find that out really quickly. And doing a 100-person or 200-person icebreaker is not going to help you figure that out. It's not. It's
Right.
going to make you figure out that you've turned people off to what you're trying to accomplish.
No, it's and by saying what you're saying in terms of the organic melding of or integration of people and then getting to know each other, like that's really one of the key elements of doing staff socials and things like that we used to do a lot more of, which we we can't really do too much of these days due to liabilities and things. So being able to turn a portion of staff training into into that fun, comfortable environment where people can just mix and mingle and get to know each other organically, I think is a great idea.
And your supervisors, your leadership team should be facilitating a lot of that. So they should be walking around the room or wherever you're doing this and letting people getting to know each other and bringing people to each other and saying, oh, this is Dave. He's really into Star Wars. Also, you guys should really talk and, see what you have in common and, encourage those kind of relationship building. The other thing too is now with all this technology, hopefully everybody's doing like a Facebook staff page before the summer and people are introducing themselves on Facebook or whatever it is that you're using. And they already know each other a little bit. They recognize each other and they're like, oh, when we get to orientation, we should really meet up, right? I can't wait to meet you in person kind of stuff. And again, somebody from your full-time year-round staff should be monitoring those conversations, facilitating, driving it forward. And then when they get to camp, they're like, oh, I know you. I've seen you on Facebook, right? And again, they're getting to know each other in that way. So there's less pressure of like, nobody's ever met anybody before.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I used to do my ending of my training with 100-question test.
Oh,
How
boy.
horrible is that? So
I'll do it right now. Bring it on.
Yeah. So this year I boiled it down to a 25-question Kahoot. So I'm going to send it out ahead of time as a challenge so they can do it from wherever they are, see where they rate, how many they got right, and start, really thinking about
Awesome.
the main things I wanted them to get out of training before we even get there.
Now,
Yeah,
I will say, and Annie's going to say I can only do this with sleepaway camps, but I do tell camps that you have to kind of evaluate what your staff know. And I think it's really important to do something at the beginning. Like, what do you know and what do you need to know, right? Quick quiz, something in the middle point, right? How's it going? Are you learning? Are you getting it? And then at the end, what did you learn? What do you still have questions about? What didn't you get? And then at the end of the summer, if you can then ask them, like, what do you remember from staff training and how useful was it during the summer? So I think it's important to kind of get some of that feedback, even if you don't get a ton of it. If you only get 20%, which is a pretty good number, you still learn a lot about how you're doing.
Right. I mean, the big thing with the sleepaway camp versus the day camp is that like you could do that on site on the first day of sleepaway camp training.
Yeah.
Because you have plenty of time. Like that's the kind of thing that we have to, again, get them
Plan ahead for.
beforehand and that kind of thing. Yeah. It's a time issue.
But we have the
things.
technology, Andy.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. All right. So just a little bit more about this because I love it. I so love it, Dave. The whole, like we're talking about building community, making them feel a part of things, right?
Yeah.
Making them feel the connections, just like the kids. And by the way, it's so symmetric, right? What we try to do with the kids is absolutely 100% what we should be trying to do with the staff, right? It's so logical, and yet how many people's orientation looks like their first day of camp with the kids. We're so good at the kids, right? And then we just miss so many opportunities with the staff. So
well, because the kids are paying too. We tend to, I think we skew to the kids because the kids are paying, right?
Right.
And we're so worried about that. But we forget that if the staff aren't doing their jobs or aren't good at it, then we're never going to get paid again.
So let's talk about, again, just a little bit more about things we can do to build this kind of sense of community with the staff besides icebreakers and team building, right? So small groups is something that you mentioned. Right. I think that a lot, going back to Sam's, baby boomer 100 question kind of things, right? Like that's just a way of thinking, right? But the small groups is really simple. And, we mentioned on earlier podcasts, and I've been talking to Dave about my son's college orientation, where they broke up into groups of like 18 kid color war teams, right? And each team, they were all hooked together on their group me's or whatever, and they were constantly checking in with each other and all that kind of thing. And they were able to have these informal discussions about important things. Right?
Exactly.
And that kind of stuff. And I guess having bigger discussions about stuff and then breaking it down into smaller ones where they can really talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And I think asking them to make more decisions would be not a bad idea. Right. So can you hear me still? Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So letting them make decisions, like who do they want to go talk to?
I was actually Steve Bernstein from Camp North Star came by for a visit the other day, and we were talking about this same topic, of course, this time of year, and he was saying how he tries to make his staff orientation, which of course is like 8 days long, like tri-state. Like he wants them to choose things to go to. So he'll have like 4 things, and they'll pick those 4 things to go to, whatever the topics that are.
Why couldn't you do that?
Learn from. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah,
you could do that.
Oh, heck yeah.
And the idea of doing that, giving them choices and having those smaller groups. I think people who are more introverted, you see them in a bigger group and you think, oh, this person's totally disengaged. And then you see them in a group of 5 or 6 people and all of a sudden they're engaging, talking, asking great questions. And, and it's just a different environment for a different kind of different kind of comfort.
Yeah. And I think there's also opportunities to just ask more questions. Like I think I said that in the beginning when we first started, is I think we need to be asking them more questions, right? Asking them what they're worried about, asking them what they're stressed out about, asking them what they're looking forward to, what they're interested in, right? Why they're there. We're so good at like throwing it all out at them and hoping that some of it sticks, that we're not so great about, well, what are they really worried about? We assume we know, right? Like, how does swim work? How does the buddy board work, right? Or buddy system work? Well, we're spending a lot of time on that, and they're probably completely lost because it's their first time ever at camp, or, they've never been a staff member before, and they're like, what are they talking about? Buddy system, whistles blowing, tags, right? But if they came up with those questions and they were like, well, so let me ask you a question about swim, it might make a little more sense, right? The things that they're really curious about. And again, when they get to swim on the first day with their campers, because their campers might be lost also as to what's going on, somebody will explain it to them, right? And explain how all of that works.
And as you're saying this, I envision like, almost creating a game and having like a big, Jeopardy style board, and people are asking random questions, and then you're like, oh, you got a 200-point question here. Like, that's amazing, and just, make it fun and get them talking.
Yeah, I think if you can give them more ownership of what's going on during training, it will really help.
Yeah. I want to talk about that for a second. But first of all, the Jeopardy thing, Ehren, that's something I did to sort of bridge the Sam Thompson thing with the questions. I did it in a Jeopardy style.
Nice.
Back in the 90s. That was a big thing to do. Along what Dave was just saying about giving people responsibility. So one of the things that we're talking about right now at my camp, stealing from my son's college orientation, is coming up with orientation leaders who are not administrators, right? Who are peers of these people who have been here through the system, and giving them some responsibilities, but not real teaching responsibilities. A lot of this stuff Dave's talking about, stuff to talk about, with them, right? So if you're going to talk about lunch, let them talk about lunch. They're the ones that have done it. They've lived through it. They've been here as campers and staff. They can sort of talk about lunch probably better than you can, right?
Yeah. So another thing that I've been working on with some camps is I think, mission statements are great for camps. I'm actually talking a lot about vision statements, so taking it to the next level. But I think we also need staff mission statements, right, that are close to what the camp mission statement is, but are really focused on why the staff are there. And what I've talked about is sending some senior staff members, people who have been there for a while, sending them out of the room for a little bit to come up with a mission statement, right? They go into like a bunker, right, for like an hour, right? Because they don't have to go to a lot of this stuff that they've heard so many times.
You're talking about sleepaway camps again, aren't you?
No, this can be happening at day camp, right?
An
An
hour?
hour.
That's like 1/12 of my training time.
It's not as bad as remember I did this at a day camp, Andy. It's not as bad as you're saying.
Okay.
We did that.
Dramatic.
We did that mission statement exercise about 10 years ago, and it was supposed to take an hour. I think it took 3 debating back and forth, and then we still had to table it and come back to
Well,
it.
their attention spans aren't what they used to be.
Yeah.
Or something like that, where you send people in like these little committees to go do something and then report back, right? Give them a mission, give them something to do, and mix them up with new and old. Send them off. Say, okay, your mission is to come up with, whatever the colors, that we're going to use in an arts and crafts project. I don't know, whatever it is. Send them off. Give them something to accomplish, and then report back to the group. So they're on stage now. And, some people will excel at like the organizational part of it, keeping the group on task, and they don't want to speak, and that's fine. Some people will be like, all right, I'm going to go to be the reporter. So giving them small kind of tasks to do that are camp related that will have an impact on camp. And then say, great, we're going to use that during camp this summer, and you can see your ideas come to fruition. So doing more things like that where they really feel like they're important.
I'm really excited this year about having the returning counselors be the counselor and the kids in the group, and the new people just being other kids in the group. So some of the counselors will be doing the kid who's homesick, the kid who won't go to swim lessons, so they're going to do these scenarios, but they're going to just pop it in sometime during the day, and either they're going to decide by camp whether they tell the director and whether they tell the counselor that it's coming, or whether it's just going to happen, and see how they teach how to deal with it.
Right.
So, and I'm hoping it will not only reinforce that they know what they're doing, the ones who are doing this, but it'll also, as they teach it, it's going to sink in better for them.
Yeah, empathy. So one of the things I'm planning on doing with these orientation leaders, also choosing them well beforehand, and choosing their like mentees, the new staff, and getting them, hooked into group me's and things like that, and utilizing social media and technology and texting and such prior to camp, so that there's at least a digital relationship.
So Andy, that's awesome. And it's something I've been talking a lot about. The key to that, and I was just going to say this as a strategy with this mentor-mentee. So a lot of camps are doing it. We're like, oh, you're going to be a mentor, and then these are your mentees, and there's no real follow-through. It's really important, I think, that people understand that if you're going to set this up digitally before camp, that you have to be a viewer of that conversation. You don't have to put in any input whatsoever. You just have to be able to watch it and make sure that it's happening. And you give the mentors, or whatever you want to call them, the content, right? The questions that you want them to ask. And if it's not happening and you're watching it, you can then go to the mentor and say, hey, listen, I gave you a question to give for this month. You didn't do it yet. And then at camp, putting them together, right?
Yeah.
And again, being really intentional and saying to them, here's what I need you to talk about, right? And making sure that that's happening. I think it's an awesome idea, as long as we do it the right way. There's been a lot of people doing this kind of mentorship piece and just kind of hoping that it happens.
Hoping for the best.
Paying attention.
Right. So our thought was that we would do this and give them topics and all that kind of thing. And then upon their arrival at camp, put them into these small groups. And, we have to teach the new kids how to play, with the new counselors, how to play Gaga and Foursquare and things like that also. So have their digital friends all of a sudden turn into real life, now you're playing Gaga together kind of thing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, Oh, Dave, this is awesome. All right, we have to start winding down because, as you see my T-shirt, I have to go to a Dream Theater concert soon. So,
We don't want to keep you, Andy.
well, no, I want to throw up. Is there anything that you want to touch on since you're talking to 17 countries and thousands of people out there? Any golden nuggets of staff training you want to sort of leave with, or talk?
You know, I really want to. I think I want people to really focus on understanding your staff better, who they are, what their needs are, what their goals are. This is, people talk about these high school and college kids as if they're like the worst people in the world, right? Like they're, which is not true. They're hardworking. They want to make a difference. They want to have an impact in the environments that they're in. They're choosing to come to your camp where they could really do anything that they wanted, especially with, I don't know how the labor market in Canada is doing, but in America, it's doing really, really well. And it's getting harder to find people who want to come to camp. So they're making a great commitment. I think and they want people to know who they are, and they want people to understand them, and they want to work hard. We just have to give them those opportunities. And we have to stop with like putting up these barriers of like, well, you're part of this generation, you're no good. And we need to start telling them, we trust you, we want you here, what do you need from us? And giving them what they need. I think that's really going to be an important part moving forward, and keeping, and not only getting people, but as Andy said, keeping them through the summer or even to the first day, is really just showing that you're making an investment in them. So yeah, that's my big push.
I love it. I love it, Dave. Anything you guys want to add? Ehren, Sam, last notes on this?
I think, just the idea, with, Dave mentioning that, they should be walking away feeling like they made a good decision and, with their commitment, but also, giving them, maybe something, some type of certificate or something at the end of the summer that, I think we've talked about this on other episodes, but, just that really puts their skills into a tangible form that they can walk away and say, hey, you know what, not only did I have the best summer of my life, but these are things that were gained that I can take away and, benefit me in my future endeavors.
Yeah. Being intentional about laying out the skills, being concrete about it. These are the skills that you're gaining and laying it out for them. That's something Kim Aycock was talking about, how camp directors, Dave, are having modules during the camp season about how to write a LinkedIn entry. Right. For what
Resumes,
you're doing,
LinkedIn.
Right? How to write, how to write group leader on your resume of what you're doing at camp, senior counselor, like what that should look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
My last little nugget is just that with teaching art and teaching group games, a lot of times I'll throw out a bunch of equipment and say, create an art project or a game you can do with your kids. And actually, we've had some great projects or games come out of that we do year after year after year. So you don't always have to have it preset what you're teaching them in those areas. You can let them create and then learn from them and use it going forward.
Absolutely. Hey, look at this podcast. This was a free-flowing conversation, and I think it went fine and dandy, right?
I feel good about it personally.
All right, cool. All right, so listen, Dave, this is something we usually do. I don't know if you've ever made it towards the end of one of our actual podcasts, our normal podcasts, but we do a day camp program tip of the week. All right. And because I forgot to write this into my calendar, I'm going to think of one while Ehren and Sam do theirs first, and then we'll save yours for last. Okay. Awesome. So Sam, ladies first, go for it.
All right. So one of those times that I did the art project thing, I was trying to get it across to the staff that they have the ability to go in the art closet and just grab stuff and create, because they didn't feel like they could do that. So one of the projects that came out of it, do you all make stress balls with balloons, and you fill them with flour and tie them off, and then the kids use them as stress balls?
It's possible. I don't go to arts and crafts that much.
It's really messy and kind of a pain. So one of my guy counselors was stuffing pom-poms into a balloon and created a stress ball that was so much easier, so much less messy, and still very effective. So.
Great. There's never a lack of stress balls in this world. Right?
Yes, and Tangle toys too. I don't know if you've seen those, but those are fun I have one here actually at my desk, but those are great when you're just sitting here and going crazy.
Yeah, I think at Liberty Lake, it's all about the GIMP. It's all about lanyard. That's like the stress thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, Ehren, what's your thing?
So for me, a great staff training type activity. I guess you could call it an icebreaker, but you can do it in small groups, and it's a great one because you're not. It's not an every man or woman for themselves. It's a joint effort with a partnership or groups of twos or threes. It's a variation on there's an activity called the maze that some camps have in the low ropes area, but basically just tying some strings across an area, old ropes or climbing ropes, whatever, and creating a pattern of starting point to end point with the ropes, and having partners or groups work together to try to get through it. So one person's blindfolded, the others, one or two people might be blindfolded on the team, and the others are standing in one area all together, and yelling commands to help that person make it through the maze. And so the most interesting part about the activity is when you limit what they can say. So each team usually has a different language that they're given, so they can only talk about foods in their description, so they can't say any words other than types of food or animals or whatever it is. And so you have a bunch of people yelling animal names from a position against the wall to 20 other people that are trying to move through this maze, and they're working on communication, they're working on having a great time getting to know each other, and then you can do a little bit of a closing exercise debrief, or whatever you want to call it, where you can remind them that everyone communicates differently, and your campers are different, and all that fun stuff. So it's a great activity, lots of fun. You can play for quite a long time, changing the rules and parameters, and it's been a popular one for us.
Awesome. Before we get to me and Dave, I have to tell you that the Day Camp Program Tip of the Week is brought to you by our friends at AM Skyer. My gosh.
Yes, AM Skyer.
Yeah, our friends out there. The leading insurance broker for the finest camps in America for almost 100 years. We're on 99, Dave. Did you know that?
I knew that. Trust me.
AM Skyer has been a strategic partner for summer camps, ready to support any needs arising in PR, legal issues, health, facility, and more. Experience the AM Skyer difference. So do you have yours yet, Dave? Because I got a good one to end.
I'm ready to go. Yeah, I'll do mine.
Okay, go for it.
Yours probably better, so it's fine. So mine is, I teach a class on chivalry, but it's not just for boys, it's for girls too. And it's all about like how to behave politely in this world, right? How to it's all
etiquette
about
class, like etiquette class?
Like almost like etiquette, but more about like self-awareness and realizing what's going on outside of you and what's going on in the other parts of the world around you. So for instance, like we'll go to the dining hall, as we call it at Sleepaway Camp, and there'll be a table set, and we'll talk about like waiting till everybody gets their food. We'll talk about the kinds of conversations you should have, things like that. Then we'll go to the parking lot and we'll get on a bus and we'll talk about if a elderly person or if somebody who's pregnant comes onto the bus or to the train, that you offer up your seat because you probably don't need to sit. Things like that. I, for one, for my beautiful, amazing wife, Pam, I open the car door for her. So we talk about opening the car door for people, or any door for people, just being polite in general, saying thank you and please, and understanding how to treat other people, and looking up from our phones once in a while and understanding how to do that.
That's really awesome, Dave. It's really awesome. I love it. All right. Well, I told you I had a good one for the end because it literally is the end. I'm talking about having a zombie apocalypse at your camp. So, in this age of The Walking Dead, and you could probably name 20 other things where there's dead people walking around, kids and their parents are totally into it. And, there's a little bit of investment into some of that grease paint and the phony blood and all that kind of stuff, but it all can be done very, very cheaply. I'm sure you can Google, how to make that kind of stuff on the cheap and be making it out of like flour and I don't know what, but to take an army of children, oh, look, we're right around the corner from Game of Thrones too, right? An army of children and let them do that to themselves. And that, like, you have never seen such big smiles on seemingly dead children. Yeah, and you can frame it all kinds of ways. So at Liberty Lake, we do like a haunted house week, right, where kids will work all week towards building a haunted house, and then on Friday, the kids who have the courage, the other kids who have the courage, can go through it and they scare them, right? And we've done that as an actual haunted house thing under tents, because of course we don't have dining halls, and we've done it at trails through the woods, like haunted trails, but. You can do, and when you're talking about a zombie thing, I mean, think of like Dawn of the Dead. It could just be this like suburban thing, like where there's just zombies everywhere kind of thing. It just sort of happens. And we had a zombie parade, like that sort of ended it, and everybody got into the parade. You bring in your theater people to teach the kids how to act like zombies, because they have to twitch a little and sort of make some zombie sounds. And you're bringing in people to do like stage makeup and things. So you're actually teaching them a lot of really cool stuff. And I got to tell you, the parents were so down with it. And needless to say, photos like you wouldn't believe.
Are you going to put on your zombie makeup before you go to the Dream Theater concert that you're going to tonight?
Not that kind of music, Dave.
Oh, I didn't know.
Not that kind of music. But I did go to Kiss recently, and that would have been perfect for that, I have to say.
Missed opportunity.
For those of you who, you should see Kiss, it's their final tour. This is it. Like, you want to have a chance. It's a big deal. Their first album came out in 1974, and like half the music was from that album. That's a pretty unbelievable run. Right? All right, we're a little off topic. Anyway, there you go. We got Zombie Apocalypse, Stress Balls, Giant Mazes, and Chivalry and Awareness from Dr. Dave. All right. And shout out to his beautiful, lovely wife who, opens car doors for her and everything. That's so wonderful. Right. Thanks for coming, Dave. I want to thank you.
This was fun.
For spending the time with us. All right. From your home studio in downtown Philadelphia. And just, to give a little plug, Dave is running an online master's program from Gratz College down the street in Philly. You want to give 30 seconds to that?
I mean, it's a great program. It's something that we ran at a different university for 10 years. It started with A.M. Skyer, actually. We're the ones who founded it. We have huge scholarship opportunities. The Norman Friedman Scholarship Fund is available to students. We're trying to offer up to 30% scholarships. If you work at a JCC, there's also a JCC scholarship. The American Camp Association of New York, New Jersey has scholarships as well. If you're a ACA New York, New Jersey member, you can also qualify for scholarships. It's 36 credits, an online master's program. So check it out. It's pretty exciting. We had a cohort start in the spring, and we'll have another one starting this fall.
That's great. I recommend that to all our little ACA affiliates across the country. Should put together a little scholarship program. That's great, Dave. You got ACA in New York, New Jersey to do that too.
Shout out to Susie and Sam.
Yeah, that's something I said we should do that, and now you've already done that. So cross that off my list. Right. So we also want to thank Travis Allison from Go Camp Pro for helping us get this show on the air. Our Matt Homsberger, our backstage producer guy, ACA New York, New Jersey, CRS, Recreation Specialist, A.M. Skyer, for helping fund us and bring this podcast to you. And check out our show notes on this and our other episodes at daycamppodcast.com. And free to send us some feedback and some new ideas for future podcasts. And if you don't want to miss an episode of the Day Camp Pod, then you should subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or whatever the heck they are. All right. And don't forget to show your day camp brethren some love and give us some nice ratings, right? We don't have too many ratings, right? We're asking all our family members. Dave, I don't know. You got any ideas how we can get ratings? Can't you pay people?
On more often. I think that's how you do it.
We should be like Twitter. Can't you buy ratings like people buy Twitter followers? Can't you do that? We're not going to do that.
Andy. I think that's
We're not going to do that. All right. So listen, we'll be back really soon with our next topic. Are you ready for this, Dave?
I'm ready.
Managing staff anxiety with Bob freaking Ditter. That is right. Big announcement. So enjoy the winter. What's left of it? Oh, we're in spring. Oh my gosh. It's only 70 days to camp. Thanks for listening. This has been the Day Camp Podcast. Bye-bye.